I was about to put on my outdoor boots, snow pants, parka, toque, scarf, and mitts to go catch my bus. It was the last day of school before Christmas break. I was in grade 5, but still had a relationship with my fourth grade teacher, who was still in her classroom. She was in her mid-30s at that time. I remember she was very fond of my dad, who always spoke at career day and brought old aircraft gear in from the hangar. In grade 4, he gave the class an old radio for us to mess with. We had an altimeter as well. She gave every student in the class a small apple ornament the previous Christmas, each one with our name written in Sharpie. Mine said, Danielle Noel 90, Madame Holmes. The Christmas of 1991, however, was different because she was having a baby. I remember her tummy starting to show once she got into her 5th month. In early adolescence myself, I had a lot of questions about pregnancy and what it all felt like. It fascinated me to think a whole person could fit inside my tummy one day, too. I put down my bag and went over to her. She saw me in the doorway and asked how I was enjoying grade 5. She looked different to me, but I didn't know how or why. We had a pleasant exchange, and I was sure to wish her Joyeux Noël before hurrying to catch my bus. We had Christmas break, which went by way too fast. The evening before going back to class was just like normal. I woke up, though, in the middle of the night, gasping for air. It scared me. That had never happened before. But I rubbed my feet together, something that's called cricketing, a learned self-soothing behavior in kids dealing with emotional neglect. I fell back asleep. When I woke up to my alarm, I really didn't want to go to school. Not the usual school way, but I was anxious about going. Something was wrong, and I could feel it in my abdomen. Everybody else on the bus was acting totally normal, talking about where they went, who they saw, and what cool gifts they got, scratching their initials on the frozen frosted windows and yelping everything that came to mind. I had a bad feeling, but I didn't know why. When we got to school, the kids all continued to be normal. Then I saw the adults milling around the office together, the doors closed. They weren't acting like normal at all. Normally, they were happy to see us, but that day they were subdued. Something was wrong, and it felt like I was the only one who noticed. And something was wrong. Madame Holmes wasn't there. We were asked to sit on the carpet at the front of the classroom as though we were in kindergarten. My English teacher came in with the counselor. They only spoke English to us French immersion kids. The counselor only came around when something was important and needed no language barrier, like sex ed. They sat on little chairs. My English teacher was fighting her tears hard, like my mom when she was arguing with Dad recently in the hallway. Why can't you just get over this? I heard through my door. I don't know, Mom said, with the same quaver in her voice as my teacher's. By now, everybody was aware something was wrong and had gone quiet, finally. My English teacher kept looking away, afraid of losing it after beginning to speak. Last night something happened, she stammered, her face turning rosy, like you went to recess without a scarf on your face. The counselor put a hand on her shoulder as it started to shudder. Madame Holmes died last night, she blurted, before standing up so fast her kid-sized chair flopped over as she ran into the hallway. I was holding my breath again, wanting to wake up from this nightmare. Praying for it, in all honesty, my fingers in my mouth as I started biting my nails. The counselor fielded the obvious questions lobbed at her. No, she wasn't far enough along in her pregnancy for the baby to survive. We don't know the reason why, but she stopped breathing. Yes, there will be a service for her here. I'd been to school with these same kids since kindergarten. I was expecting the shock to lift relatively quickly. but the usually obnoxious boys didn't even misbehave after that. We heard through the grapevine later on that it was a pulmonary embolism doing what those do, moving like grapes dislodged from the vine up the calf into the lung, the blood oxygen tanking, and suffocation. I told my parents at dinner that evening. They were in disbelief. I recognized this was really their shock. She was not old or ill, after all, but they couldn't stop themselves from asking, "You sure about that? Did you misunderstand something, maybe?" "No," I said, looking at the flowers on my Royal Dalton plate, full of chicken and rice and beans. "She stopped breathing for too long," I said, "and now nobody knows what to do." I started thinking about what would happen if one day my parents stopped breathing and died like that. They were Madame Holmes's age. If she could just die like that, anything was possible. 22 years after this teacher's death, I was in Vic General. I'd been intubated and unconscious for 7 days in ICU. Level 1 coma that time. No response to stimuli. When I was admitted to the regular ward, I woke up during the night to a woman screaming and a nurse coming in to hide hand sanitizer in one of my cupboards. "What's going on?" I asked, my throat still really tender. "I'm just going to put these here," she said. "Why?" "Because yours is a safe room." She then remembered who I was and chastised herself in silence because she turned to ask me, "You don't have a problem with alcohol, do you?" "Not in the traditional sense, I guess. Why?" The screaming was intrusive now. I was never going to get back to sleep, so I lifted my bed. The nurse came close enough that she wouldn't have to raise her voice. "Because hand sanitizer's full of alcohol, and alcoholics drink it. It happens all the time, so that's why. Okay?" I nodded. Yeah. She left for the screaming woman's room, and I didn't envy her one bit. "Okay, I have no choice but to restrain you now," the nurse told the woman, raising her voice to be heard. Extra staff clomped past my door. The woman resisted as best she could, but was harnessed to the bed rails. Her yarding on the restraints made a metal sound reminiscent of a jailhouse. "My leg hurts," I told the doctor who was assessing whether I was medically stabilized or not. He knew my medical history and why I was there. I'd been immobile and had a chest cough from aspirating as a result of the intubation. Now my calf hurt. He grabbed his little communication fob from his scrubs and jumped onto the bed, clamping my calf hard. "Do not move, you hear me?" he said. He was stern because we'd had a fight about whether or not I should be alive in earlier days. He held my calf so tight I thought it was going to detach. "Get us down to CT right now," he instructed the porter. We rolled down the hallway with walls covered in those colored stripes, promising your destination at their end. Destinations like medical imaging got more specific as we scrolled by. Breast imaging, cardiac imaging went by, ultrasound, MRI, CT went by. I was struggling to breathe even though I had an oxygen mask. I knew I was a priority because they brought me right into the imaging lab without waiting. They were waiting for me. I was brought back upstairs and told again to not move. It wasn't long before the nurse came in with a table full of pre-filled syringes. She lifted my gown up and over me, exposing my abdomen. "All right, this stuff stings, I hate to say," she said, jabbing 1, 2, 3, and then a 4th shot into my belly. She wasn't lying. Not only does heparin burn inside your body, it burns your skin. It burns and bruises all around the injection site. I winced, surprised at the sudden blaze that only seemed to get hotter as it traveled through my veins, like getting shot by 4 tiny liquid flamethrowers. "It will subside in a little bit." I'll be back soon to check on you and give you your warfarin as well. Why am I gobbling so many hits of rat poison? I thought you wanted to keep me alive, I said, irritated by this whole endeavor. Standard protocol for pulmonary embolisms, she said. Why'd that happen? I asked, more alert now because the oxygen levels had increased. It can happen when you're immobilized for a length of time, you've aspirated liquid into the lungs, you have a pre-existing hematological condition, are obese, have a history of smoking, are elderly, things like that. I looked down at my obese body that had been immobilized for over a week, coughing. I got to Vic General unconscious and don't remember the ride. I do remember the unease in my duodenum right before, though. A small yet persistent cramp that I couldn't decipher, and everyone else around me was acting as though everything was totally normal, until it wasn't. I was an adult in my early 30s then, and I ignored the pain, as adults often do. I ignored the pain so much, in fact, that I forgot it was there and was prescribed more medication, which I dutifully took. This included common drugs used today like SSRIs and NDRIs and benzodiazepines, and it veered into the more archaic stuff like tricyclics and a lingering threat of MAOIs if I didn't respond. I didn't, I suppose, because there I was, again. I remembered my teacher and what must have been a terrifying death for her as the nurses came to jab my belly, tie-dyed in yellow, blue, purple, and black, bruises at different stages of healing. She brought a phlebotomist every day for a blood gas draw. They were really trying to keep me alive. They were successful, obviously, but I couldn't seem to get the point across that my way was the better way. What do you want? You're not in scrubs, I said to the psychiatrist and the psychiatric nurse. Your child needs you, he started to say. I put my hand up when he tried to elaborate. What do you know about it? Get the hell out of here, I said, that pain back in my stomach as though it never left. I gestured to the door with my thumb. He and the nurse didn't leave. I'm beyond help, don't you get it? I choked as my throat started giving out. Embarrassed that I couldn't project, I threw my arm in the door's direction to emphasize what I couldn't say. Your husband loves you, the doctor said. Lord only knows why. I'm just a fat, disgusting slob who can't hold down a job or enjoy my family, I said. Once discharged, I was on warfarin and had a standing order for weekly blood draws. I just had to go to the lab, give my name, and say I'm here for my INR. They knew what to do after that, so I went to sit with the elderly people who were waiting or just clotting after their draw. I'm sure they were just as confused to see me sitting with them as I was. I was 31 and felt like I was 301. I was already having memories of how, when I was 26, I had to sit with a bunch of older women in a breast imaging lab because I had a lump. They thought I was in the wrong place then, too. As a kid, I'd heard the expression, "You're ahead of your time," before, but this was a medical earliness that I was tired of. I saw the elderly women and a couple men, the lab regulars like me, and wondered if they were scared of their children, too. My child was 3 and I barely knew him. My husband and I were watching TV after putting our little one to bed, and he came calling, "Daddy!" He told us all about his nightmare of his favorite unicorn, Yuna, who he carried down with him. I pulled him into the couch to hug him, struggling to catch his breath. What happened? We both asked. I was playing in the dream and I couldn't find Yuna. When I found Yuna, he was all bloody and dead, he said, wailing. I didn't want to come off as uncaring, but I did want to comfort him, so I said what my parents would have told me. Don't worry, it was just a dream. You're safe, we're safe, and Yuna is with you. I saw the anxiety in that little person's face and recognized it. It felt like I'd given him a horrible gene, like the hematological condition present in some of Mediterranean descent, beta thalassemia, but instead it was my sensitivity. I didn't ever want him to know that affliction and sought to punish myself for it. I've been Danielle Walker. It's nice to see you.